thanks so much. It's great to be back up here. It seems like just yes, I left 27 years ago, and here I am again. This building was brand new when I left in 1986. But I'll tell you a little bit of, well, I'll start off talking about me, which is something I don't need notes for usually. But, so when I went to law school, as Shirley was saying, in Hastings, not too far from here. And when I was at Hastings, a number of us had an idea to start a law journal based in entertainment law, which is easier said than done when you're in San Francisco at that time. This was 1976. So we got a grant, we created a law journal, and that led to a lot of consequences, some intended and some not. Most of the people I founded this journal with, which is still in existence, moved to Los Angeles and went in the entertainment business, and which turned out to be a good thing for me. I didn't want to move to Los Angeles, and so I moved to Sausalito, and I worked in the Transamerica Pyramid, and I was a trial lawyer here for 10 years. And the thing that you learn when you're a trial lawyer is that the continuum out before you seems to go on forever without respite. You know, working every day, working, you know, every day. And so I had a great time as a trial lawyer, but then as things happen sometimes in life, I got a call from this fellow that I founded the journal with, this 10 years later, and he said, I've got a wild idea. He goes, I haven't talked to you in 9 years, but we're looking for a lawyer at Lorimar, which was a huge production company in the United States. And he said, why don't you come down and come to work for Lorimar? And you know, my principle has always been that I want no senile regrets. I don't want to think that I didn't do something I should have done. So I pretty much immediately moved to Los Angeles, and I became, you know, on Monday I was a trial lawyer, and on Friday I was an entertainment lawyer. And it worked just that way. That I didn't have any experience doing it aside from what I'd done at Comment, and it turned out to be a very good experience. One of the interesting things was, in 1986 when I moved to Los Angeles, San Francisco was a banking and insurance city. And at that time, I mean, I don't feel that old, and this is 27 years ago, but at that time, I don't know if it's still true here, bicycle messengers were how you communicated. FedEx had just started. There was, you know, I had a client on Pier 15 that owned a tugboat company, and I went down to see him one day, and he had this machine. And I said, what's that? He said, it's a telefax. And I said, well, what do you do with it? You know? And he said, well, people send you messages, and you get, you know, on the phone, you get paper out. And I said, yeah, but nobody has one. Who sends you this stuff? And then when I got to Lorimar, this is really an aside, they had a fax operator. So in the company, if you wanted to send a fax, you had to give, like a telex, you had to give a piece of paper to the operator who would then feed it and fax it. So it was a very elaborate kind of thing. But San Francisco in 1986 was a banking insurance city. There was no Silicon Valley. There was no Lucasfilm, there was no Apple, there was no Microsoft that you knew about. There was a TR-80 computer from Radio Shack, which was the first one around as a laptop. So it was a much different world. And when I got to Los Angeles, it was an epiphany. There were all of these wild creative characters running around in the television business, and it was just eye-opening compared to the kinds of people I was meeting in San Francisco. And all that has certainly changed now. But so the entertainment business was a great kind of move for me. So it was kind of just like this huge black and white epiphany between San Francisco and Los Angeles. So the question always comes up, and there's a lot of interest in the entertainment business. And the interest that I see, I'll step back a second. So I was at Lorimar. I ran the news division at Lorimar after about 18 months. Then all of a sudden, Warner Brothers bought Lorimar, and they said, you know, you're running a nice division, but it's too small for us. So you're going to be a lawyer again. We're going to put you in the legal department at Warner Brothers. So I thought, okay, that's fine. So I went to Warner Brothers, and about a year later, I got a call saying, we're starting a television network. Jamie Kellner is here. I just started the Fox network. Go help him. So I was the first employee at the WB, and I ended up running the WB in 2006. When I got another call saying we're going to start another network called the CW, we want you to go run that. So I've had a great career by just kind of being the right place at the right time. But so I've had a lot of television experience, both at the WB, Warner Brothers, the CW, which is half owned by CBS and half by Warner Brothers. But the thing that is always interesting to me is that when I come to San Francisco and people talk about the entertainment business, the focus seems to be on technologies. People want to talk about television on the internet, they want to talk about Hulu, Netflix, they want to talk about satellite. And by the way, when I left San Francisco, there was no satellite. There were three television channels on the air here. There was ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox didn't start until September 15th, 1986. So it was a very, very different world. And the thing that's interesting to me always is that when the focus is on technology and entertainment, there seems to be a big focus on the satellite distribution, on DVR, what have you, and it comes down to a certain thing for me. And I brought something to show you from Los Angeles that maybe you haven't seen before. It's an iPhone. There's a picture of my dachshund on it. And there's something that I want to do for you. There's something on here you can do, and that is you can play music. And I want to play this for you. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
It's Uncle John's band, the Grateful Dead. And the reason that's interesting to me is that in 1970, when I was living in Orinda, I listened to this on my Sony turntable. I had a beautiful wooden Sony turntable. When I was living in San Francisco, I listened to it on my Walkman, I listened to it on my 8-track, I listened to it on my cassette deck, and now, goddammit, listen to this on my iPhone. Same song I'm listening to today. And you know what? I don't cry any crocodile tears about my 8-track or my Sony turntable, but the content endures. I'm still listening to the same song from the Grateful Dead that I thought was great in 1970, and I think it's great now. So for me, whether you get the content over the internet, over the television, by satellite, no matter how you get it, I'm all about content. And I'm about the creative process that creates the content, because I think that is really the alpha and the omega. So when I was trying to think about what I might talk to you about tonight a little bit, I thought you'd probably know a lot more than I about the technology that goes on, but I thought I'd talk to you about content creation in the network business. Because in many ways, this is still playing. In many ways, I think that it is the most extraordinary time, the absolute most extraordinary time to be a content creator. When I alluded to the fact that I left San Francisco, it was a different world. Well, there were very few places where you could exploit creative talent in 1986. You had 3 television networks, and there wasn't a whole lot you could do. Now, technology has become an equalizer, both in the sense that you can create technology. When I first got to Warner Brothers, you could go by, and editing was done by hand, and you would go by certain windows, and the strips of film would be held up by laundry clips on a string. And now editing can be done on your laptop. That you can create motion pictures with a Canon D5. That it's just extraordinary. So I think technology is a great equalizer that really fosters the creative process in ways that were unimaginable just a few years ago. So I'm extremely, my optimism is extreme in terms of content, because at home I have a Roku box, for example, and when I turn the Roku box on, I can get to Hulu and Netflix and Amazon. I can see those things, and I can see about 100 other channels. And the trick is that even though I've got hundreds of Roku channels and I've got 1,000 channels on my television, the trick is finding something that you really want to see. That to create television or motion pictures that are dramas that emotionally connect, or comedies that make you laugh, or documentaries that inform in unique and novel ways, I think those are skill sets that are really extraordinary, and are only going to get, there's only more and more need to fill the distribution channels with quality content. So I'm very bullish about somebody's prospects about doing that now, as opposed to a number of years ago. So I think that I think technology has created huge opportunities in entertainment that are capable of being exploited. That's the good news. The maybe questionable news is that I think that probably those people, those companies, those entities that are doing it now, the model probably is going to exist for some time to come. And there's a lot of mystery about how the television business works and how the network business works. And I thought that if my thesis is right, that if you want to get into content creation in kind of a big Los Angeles, Hollywood kind of way, you're going to have to deal with these companies that exist now. It might be interesting or useful to you if I talked about how the business works now. And because it is a little bit mysterious, and it can be impenetrable. So the deal is this, that a network, a television network, mostly, always, does not create programming. The television networks are marketing and a sales platform, marketing platform that sends out a signal. The deal is this, that up until 1993, companies could not own, like in terms of television, a company could not own prime time. There was an FCC rule called FinCin that said that there could be no financial interest of a television network in the programming that they create. So under that rule, there was a lot of activity among independent production companies that would go out and produce prime time, like the Cosby Show or what have you. Those were all independently owned. When FinCin went away, companies like Time Warner, Viacom could own an interest in the television shows in prime time. So that kind of changed a lot of things that, kind of changed the way the entertainment business worked. But so networks now can own a piece of the shows, but most networks don't. Most networks still look to independent producers, independent production companies to bring them product. And the way the process normally works is this, that the business is really cyclic, and the television business is much more corporate than the music business and probably the film business. It's all very tied to the calendar. And it's a very stimulating business, because the film business, making a motion picture can go on forever. You could start a picture 20 years ago and just be finishing it now. But in television, everything happens every year. So the deal is this, that starting in the summer, starting in June every year, scripts are ordered. The networks go out and look for new writers' scripts to put on the air, and that process goes on June, July, August, into September. Scripts are bought. A network might buy 50 scripts. Writers might come in and sell us 50 scripts. And then towards the end of the fall, pilots are ordered. The pilots, every network might buy 8, 9, 10, 15 pilots. The scripts are turned into pilots, and the pilots are made between the late winter and early spring, and the pilots are selected usually the last week of April, the first week of May, and leading towards an event in New York called the Upfront, when every television when every television network presents their schedule to advertisers. And this goes back to when Detroit was a very powerful advertiser, because the new cars were coming out in September. The networks would want to present their shows. The fall launch of the television season was in September. So the Upfront takes place in May. Advertising time, a portion of the network's advertising time is sold to the advertisers every May, leading to the fall launch. Then the shows, they start production during the summer. So every year in the network business, it's the same calendar, the same things happen, from buying scripts to pilots to making pilots to choosing which pilots are going to be turned into television series, and then the production starts in the summer, and then they go on in the fall. Some succeed, some don't, but it's always the same. Now the interesting thing is, in terms of economics, is that, as I said, networks do not typically own shows they're on, that they buy them from production companies. And it's a very interesting thing that happens with the production companies. Production companies own the copyrights in the shows, and they license the shows to the television network. And the way the economics might work are that a network might pay $1 million to broadcast an episode of a show, and the trick is, the show, although the network is paying $1 million, the show might cost $2 or $2.5 million to make. So somebody's losing money during every hour that the show is on the network. So the network pays a license fee, the production company owns the show, producing it at a deficit. And the deficit is such that, you know, we typically order 22 episodes of a series. Well, a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars are in the balance being lost for every week the show is on. But what happens is that because the production company owns the copyright, they have the ability to go out and sell it internationally. They have the ability to sell it in syndication, so-called, which means selling it to independent stations. And as you know, a show like Seinfeld or Friends is going to be on for the rest of our lives. So even though the show lost money when it was on the network run, when Seinfeld was on NBC, every week the production company was losing money. I think Castle Rock produced Seinfeld. Now, that show is probably worth billions of dollars because all over the world, every day, someplace right this minute, Seinfeld is on television.